Hello YouTube, my name is Daniel Walter Scott, and this next video is a free extract from my larger InDesign advanced course that you can find on bringyourownlaptop.com. Hi there, my name is Dan and I'm an Adobe certified instructor and Adobe certified expert in InDesign. I was named Max Master at Adobe Max this year, which is Adobe's big conference they have every year. Now this course is about the advanced features in InDesign. We're going to talk about productivity, speedy workflow techniques, so this is not for people brand new to InDesign. It's for people that already have the fundamentals. If you are okay placing images, working with text, then this is the course that's going to take you to the next level. Now, even if you consider yourself a pretty heavy InDesign user, I promise you, this course is going to blow your InDesign mind. You'll learn advanced font tricks using Typekit and Opentype fonts, as well as font grouping and font pairing. You'll master color features like the color theme tool and color modes, as well as techniques for professional proofing of colors for print. We'll set permanent defaults like fonts, colors, and turning the dreaded hyphenation off once and for all. We'll explore tricks for creating, aligning, and distributing shapes, as well as more advanced drawing tricks, even tricks on how to magic up more background or completely remove it. And what would an advanced InDesign course be without tactics to control our paragraphs fully? Fun tricks like expanding text boxes, splitting and spanning columns. You'll become a styles master using nested styles, grep styles, next styles, advanced object styles. Your work is going to become super amazing, super fast, super fluid. We'll make beautiful charts and graphs in InDesign. You'll finally learn all the pros and cons for all the various digital distribution methods, including things like interactive PDFs, EPUBs, and the amazing new Publish Online. You become a master of long, text-heavy documents, as well as interactive forms and scripts. There is just so much we cover. I want to cover it all here in the intro, but there's just not enough time. So for a detailed list, go through the video course list. That'll outline everything that we cover. So if you are one of those people who knows there's a better, faster way to work in InDesign, follow me. We'll go from good at InDesign to super amazing at InDesign. Get excited. InDesign is awesome. All right, time to get started. The main thing is to download the exercise files. So there will be a link on the page here somewhere to download those exercise files. The other thing to do is I have what's called the completed files, and it just means on every video you'll see a link, and it'll just be where I'm up to at the end of that video. Okay, so the InDesign document, the INDD file, so you can download it. If yours isn't working, just compare mine with yours. Yeah, that's it. Let's get into the videos. Hi there, welcome to the Workspace video. We're going to start with just some housekeeping to make sure we're all on the same page. Then we're going to move into some more advanced Workspace features, so hang around for that, there's some gems in there. So to start with, we're going to make sure we've got our units and increments all the same. And you do it up here on a Mac, it's under InDesign CC, Preferences, and go to Units. If you're on a PC, it's under Edit. And down the bottom here, Preferences and Units. So find here, the other thing to note that if you're changing your default units from say millimeters or pickers and pikers or inches, you need to do it with no files open. If I have a file open and do it, it'll change just for that document. And as soon as I close it down and open up a new document, you'll go back to the default, and that can be really annoying. So nothing open, and let's go to our units and increments. Now, depending on where you are in the world, you might be on pikers, okay, or pickers. It's an old school style from newspaper days. I never use pikers, so I'm always switching mine to millimeters because I'm in Europe most of the time, but if I've got clients in the US, I'm switching into inches. We're going to use inches for this course, okay, just because most of the people watching these videos are based in the US. Okay, so that's all you need to do. Click OK. We never change the stroke. It's always done in points. Okay, so we're going to click OK. Now that'll change the default forever. The other thing I'd like you to do is if we go to File and go to Open, I'd like you to go to your exercise files Okay, and in 01 Spring Flyer, if you haven't downloaded the exercise files, there's a link on the page here somewhere. I want you to open up the INDD file, the 01 Spring Flyer. If you're using an older version of InDesign and playing along, a lot of this stuff will still work, but you might have to use the IDML file. This will allow older versions of InDesign, pre-CC 2018, to open them up and work fine. If you're in CC 2018 or above, just use the INDD files. Let's click open. Now, first thing is I'm going to go to up the top here. This is going to change my workspace. Okay, so I'm going to make sure the tick is on Essentials, and I'm going to click Reset Essentials. That means that everyone's going to look the same. The other thing that I'm going to do is, see this little pop-out menu here? Okay, this little chevrons. I'm going to pop mine out and have this open for the entire class. It's up to you. It doesn't matter, but that's the way I'm going to work through this course. If you're on a PC, I'm pretty sure it's up here or on the left. If you can't find it, that exact same thing is here, Window, Workspace, and you can see here, Essentials, same thing. Okay, so that's the boring housekeeping stuff out of the way. Let's look at some more advanced workspace features, and it's to do with this pasteboard area here, okay, this kind of like lighter gray in the background. Now, a lot of people, okay, me included, I like to kind of copy things and move it over here and start working on like alternate layouts. Okay, but there's not a lot of room in here. Watch this. If I start making a couple of versions, and if I start dragging it out, look, there's just no room there, and there's definitely no room at the top. Okay, by default, it only gives you a tiny pasteboard area. If you're like me, in Illustrator, it has like a ginormous pasteboard area. You end up doing lots of work kind of all over the place. So we can adjust that here in InDesign as well. Now there's two ways to do it per document. Okay, if I've got this document open, I can say just this document, preferences, go to guides and pasteboard. Okay, and down the bottom here is where the defaults are. Okay, so mine's 8.5 by 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to 18, and over here by maybe about 5 inches. Click OK, and you'll see it has a much bigger pasteboard area. Some people love a big pasteboard area, some people don't. Okay, one of the other things though, if you make it really, really big, say it was like 15 inches on the vertical, okay, if you have another page, can you see they're actually quite physically far apart? It's not a big deal, but that's just something to be considered. Now though, if I open up a new document, okay, any random document, you'll notice my pasteboard area is back to the teeny tiny size. To get around that is that to have nothing open, I'm going to close both of these back up, close, 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 and have nothing open. And if I change my settings now, okay, it'll change forever. So you can go in here, change it up to a bigger size. I leave mine as default just to match my students when they come into class. So we're going to leave that there. Before we get out of here though, I'd like you to show you under General, this thing here, Show Start Workspace. This is the new workspace in 2018 where it kind of shows you the documents you've been working on. Some people don't like that. They don't want to see all the panels like it was before. You can just turn that off there, click OK, and it means when it starts up, it goes to this view. But that's totally up to you. It annoys lots of people. Under Preferences again, okay, we're going to go to, I'm going to turn that back on. I've grown to like it, but I know a lot of people don't. One of the other things people don't like working with is interface. Okay, over here you can click through and just change it back to old school InDesign, up to you. I'm gonna go to this default here of this medium dark. Let's click OK. Next thing we can do to make your kind of starting a job a lot smoother and a lot faster is to adjust the default pages. Because whenever you go to File, New Document, okay, you've got Print, and you've got some defaults. Okay, so US Letter has defaults, but there might be things in here like you might always be using 2 columns and the margins you might be changing. Okay, so you might have things that you do every single time. You're like, man, every time I have to do that. Okay, so what you can do to change this by default is go to Close and go to File, come down to Document Presets and click on Define. Okay, and we're going to double click the default. And I'm going to be working under Print and pick your page size. You might be A4 or letter, whatever you want to adjust. Okay, and in here you might be saying, I'm using landscape the whole time. Nobody's using landscape the whole time, but down here as well, columns, I want 2 columns and I want a gutter that's kind of nice and full like that. What I tend to do as well is margins. I break this little link here so that down the bottom, I always have like a thicker bottom piece down the bottom of my margins contains the page numbering and the document title. And say you're always working and you need to have your bleed. You could type in 0.125. Cool thing about that now is if I click OK, whenever I go to a new document, okay, and I pick Print US Letter now, you can see down here I've got 2 columns, my margins are set there, 1 inch there, and my bleed is all set for me. You might have 2 versions, okay, and you can have more than one under File, File Definitions, and you can click on Define, and you can just create your own. Okay, so you might create a new one and call this letter alternative 1 or letter for a specific client, okay, and it'll appear in your new documents. You might be in charge of a larger studio, okay, and you can grab your default and you can save it. Save it onto the network drive and people can come into the same option and load it in, so you've got some consistency across documents. Before we go out, I am going to edit mine and put it back to normal. So I'm going to go change this and we'll cut this out and I'll see you in a sec. Okay, one last thing to make your life a little easier in InDesign is the Pages panel. So let's open up any old document. Okay, and open up my Spring Flyer again. In my Pages panel here, okay, I'm going to push that all the way out so I can see everything. And in the burger menu in the top here, you'll notice if I actually add a bunch of new pages, they kind of stack vertically. And that's fine, but it would be a lot more better use of space if they kind of stack side by side. And you can do that easily under the burger menu, then go to View Panels and go to Horizontally. It just means they stack side by side. And especially if you've got a nice big screen, you can have this out. You can see you can have actually quite a few on the screen at one time rather than have to scroll up and down. The other nice thing you can do is you can go to the flyout menu here and you can go to the panel options, and these thumbnails are quite small. You can adjust them, okay, to say large or extra large, depending on your preference. There's jumbo as well. Just makes some of the details a little easier to know which page you're jumping to. One thing though, if I go to Essentials and reset Essentials, it's gonna remove that. It'll stay for all the new documents now, but if you ever reset it, it'll go back to default. You can get around that by going into here and just creating your own new workspace. I'm gonna call mine Dan. Okay, and it just means that it's gonna look like this, and if I need to reset it, I can go to Reset Dan and it's gonna stay the same. Okay, so I hope you found some useful parts in getting set up. I know that's boring. You came for some more exciting advanced InDesign. Let's move on to the next video now. Bring on the fonts. Okay, so every time you draw a new text box, Type Tool, draw a text box, it defaults to Myriad Pro 12 point, with no space after and hyphenation turned on by default. Okay, so I never use Myriad Pro and I'm never at 12 point, so how do we change the defaults? The trick is just to close down the document you have open, so you've got nothing open. You'll need to switch from this kind of like Start workspace up the top here to any of these other ones. I'm going to use Essentials. Make sure you're on your Type tool, and any changes you make up here now will be the default for any new documents. So let's say most of my work gets done in Roboto, so I'm going to pick Roboto Light, and it's going to be 10 points, and in Paragraph down here, okay, I want to turn hyphenation off. I dislike your hyphenation, and I'm sick of turning you off. With that done, if I open up a new document now, I'm going to just hit the plain old empty document, grab my Type tool, draw out a type box, fill it with placeholder text, and it's Roboto Light, and it's 10 point, and there's no hyphens. Thank you very much InDesign, and goodbye Myriad. All right, next font feature. Hey there, in this video we're going to look at Typekit and Opentype fonts and how awesome they are, because they let us do things like this, where this is a font we've downloaded free from Typekit, but because it's an Opentype font, it allows us to do things like this. You can see the S, there's an alternative S with a bit of a softer edge. You can see this G here is different from the one at the top. This A is kind of more like we draw hand-drawn. This L, look at the descender. And also you can go bananas and just throw them all in and make a mess. Let's go now into InDesign to learn how to make that beautiful fonts, or like this one, a beautiful mess. Okay, first up, let's make a new document, and we're going to use US half letter. So we're going to go to Print, and we'll go down to letter half. If you can't see some of these options, you can see View All Presets. It'll drop down some other ones. Okay, so we're going to use letter half, and I'm going to make it Portrait. I'm going to set the margins to 0 and bleed at 0, and that is all going to be good. I'm going to turn off Facing Pages, click Create. Let's bring in an image. So let's go to File and go to Place. And I want to find in your exercise files under 01 Spring, there's one called Modern Kitchen White Yellow Background. Okay, and I'm going to drag it from the top all the way across, and it's going to be a little bit bigger than I need. I'm going to use the black arrow just to lift it up so it fits there. I'll zoom out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to work in my little pasteboard area over here. I'm going to grab the Type tool, drag out a nice big box and type in Spring Sale. Now, Typekit. Typekit is a service provided by Adobe. It's free, well, kind of free. It's part of your Creative Cloud license. So if you're paying for a license, you've got this. You've got access to it. To get to it, all you need to do is have your type tool on your character formatting controls, and up here where you pick fonts, let's go and pick add fonts from Typekit. Okay, and this is where you end up. Typekit is just fonts. There's commercial use. They're just really nice fonts. You can get fonts from free sites and that's fine, but Typekit has some really kind of versatile fonts and open type fonts, which we're gonna explore the kind of benefits for in a second. Now, when it comes to Typekit, not everybody can use it, mainly because of things like firewalls in bigger companies. So when I'm teaching, students, about 80% of them can do Typekit fine. But there are 20% of the people who are working at big, large corporations who don't allow this kind of like font syncing thing to work. So if you can't make yours work, talk to IT department and they'll probably tell you no, you can't do it. But for the people that can, you want to go to browse, and along the top here, you can type in, you can see I can type in anything I like. Okay, get a sense of the font before you start working. Over here on the right is a nice little way of saying, actually, I want to look at only script fonts, please, or hand-drawn fonts. Okay, just a really nice way of reordering and finding the font you want. So the one I want, I know I want Lust. Okay, I'm going to use Lust. And you can click on sync. Okay, I've already synced mine. What will happen is it'll take probably 30 seconds to a minute, and then the fonts will just start working in InDesign. There's nothing else you need to do. It's a really cool little system. So let's jump back into InDesign. So I'm going to select my text, and up here I'm going to pick Lust, and I'll pick just Lust regular. I'm going to make mine a lot bigger. 72 is too big. Enough that I can see both of those words side by side. Now, why did I pick a Typekit font? It's because it's an open type font. How do I know it's an open type font? Is because pretty much all of them that I've got from Typekit are open type fonts. And open type fonts are just a kind of more complex font. You've got, if I go to my font menu here, so I go to my type tool and I drop down all my fonts. So see these ones that say TT next to them? Okay, these are fonts, but they're quite simple. They don't have these ligatures and glyphs that I want to show you and impress you with next. So if you are picking a font, try and pick ones that either have an O or a TK next to them for Typekit. These are open type fonts as well. You might notice on your computer, you might have like Helvetica and then another Helvetica, MT or MKey or something called Pro. Often that'll be the difference between that font as a true type font or that font as an open type font. They'll look exactly the same for the kind of letters and numbers, but it's when it gets to these glyphs and ligatures that it'll change. So what I want to do is, first of all, I want to make it white for no reason, okay, and grab my black arrow. Now, if you can't see this little O down the bottom here, you can go to InDesign Preferences and go to Advanced Type. And down the bottom here, there's these two little checkboxes you can turn on. If you get sick of the little O's, you can turn them off here as well. So turn those both on. I'm going to click OK. Now, why are these great and why do I love them and get a bit excited by them is that the person that designed this font, okay, made some decisions. They decided that the A is going to be this kind of like the A that nobody draws, okay? And same with the G. Nobody writes their G's like that. You might, okay? But normally you do kind of just like a loop and a dangly bit. Okay, dangly bit's not the technical word, but a descender that goes down. But also, potentially, the font designer has made some options for you to pick from, and they're called stylistic sets. You can find them down here with a little O, just click on it with the black arrow. You can see if I click on this first one, awesome, huh? Okay, so it's changed out these three. So those were decisions that this font designer has made a second option for them all. If I turn them on and off, you can see the A, the S, and the G all change. If I turn that off, you can see this one. You've probably seen some people designing a flyer and all these kind of like curls and whips and descenders all linked together. And you're like, man, they spent ages with the pen tool. Often no, they've just gone through and found a good open type font with some good ligatures and switched them out. Okay, you can see there's a bunch in here. So this is doing it for every single thing in this box. Okay, ooh, some cool swashes. So you can do it individually. So I can just highlight this S here and you'll see it pops out of the bottom, the options for it. There's only one for the S. Let's look at the L. Okay, there's quite a few options for this one. Okay, I want, oh, which one do I want? Not that one. That one there. This is why I spend far too long kind of going through and deciding which bits we're going to use. I might switch that G out to the alternative to that. Can you just kind of work your way through and decide what you'd like to do and how far you want to customize this thing? Awesome. So I hope you get access to Typekit. Even if you don't, just go and check the font that you might be using already for work, okay, or for a job or one that you just like might already be an open type font, and there might be some stylistic sets. Not all fonts have them. Most of the exciting ones are either hand-drawn or these more kind of like title display fonts, less of the body copy ones. Okay, so you can skip on to the next video now. What I'm going to do is just kind of design, not even going to design, I'm just going to lay this out about there. I'm going to add a rectangle just so it can be seen. I'm going to push it to the back. The easiest way to do that is with your black arrow is hold Command and the first of the square brackets, which is often next to the P on your keyboard. Okay, or if you're on a PC, hold down the Control first square bracket, and that'll just kind of move it down one place. And I might lower the opacity for a little bit as well. All right, let's save this one. And for this course, I'm going to create a folder on my desktop, new folder, and I'm going to put everything in here. It's going to be my InDesign Advanced Coursework. And this one's going to be the Spring Flyer V1. All right, on to some more font awesomeness. All right, so we've already looked at Typekit. So where else do you get great fonts from? Font Squirrel is a nice place, but my favorite place where not a lot of people have heard of is Google Fonts. Okay, so fonts.google.com. You come into here, you can do the same thing as before. You can delete this and say Spring Sale, okay, and it will give you a bit of a demo of it. Now, just like Typekit, you can decide I only want to look at display fonts. Okay, you can see there that April Fat Face is a lot like Lust. I'm going to turn them all back on. The font that I want is Roboto. It's a really common body copy font that Source Sans and Open Sans are probably the most commonly used at the moment. They're just a bit nicer than, say, Arial or Helvetica. Some of you might be gasping at the Helvetica comment, but Roboto is quite nice. I'm going to type in Roboto, okay, and I'm going to download it too. So I want the Roboto, just the regular one. I'm going to hit plus. And I want the Roboto slab. It's kind of like a nice chunky one, and click this. So what this is meant to be used for is for website fonts, but there is a cool little option that not many people know about. If I click on this family selected, there's, first of all, it'll look like this. Click on customize, and you can go say, and I want the slab. I want all 3 sizes, please. And for Roboto, you can go through and just tick them all. I want all of these guys to use. Clickety click. Okay, once you've got them all, up the top here, there's this little mysterious button. It's the download button. Click on this, and it will just download those fonts to use on your computer. They are TrueType fonts, not OpenType fonts. We looked at OpenType fonts earlier, right? OpenType has extra awesomeness. So these are just regular TrueType fonts. But in the case of Roboto, it's going to be really good for us. Now, if you don't have access to download them, they are in your exercise files. Where are they? There they are. Exercise files and O1 Spring Flyer. Roboto, you can just open them up and see all these TrueType fonts. You just double click on each of them. Actually, you can click on all of them and double click them all at once, and they'll install. Okay, it's the same thing on a PC. Just double click any of those fonts and they'll install, and they'll be ready to go in InDesign. No need to restart it. So Roboto is going to be the font we use throughout this course. You can totally use any font you like, even Helvetica, but I thought Google Fonts would be a good mention. One of the perks for using Google Fonts over other fonts is that if you do design a brand and it's going to be used on a website, if you use Google Fonts, it's going to be easy to have that font on their website as well as their printed material. So it's kind of like a dual use. Whereas fonts through Typekit, some of them, not all of them, need to be licensed specifically and separately for use on websites. So before we go, let's go and use our Roboto in InDesign. I'm going to grab the rectangle tool and draw a box that kind of sits over here. I'm going to get it so it actually lines up. In my color panel here, I'm just going to drop it down so it's more of a dark grayish. And I'm going to grab the type tool. I click and drag a box down here, paste in my text, select it all, make sure it's Roboto, move it up here, and I'm going to have to use Roboto, but probably the bold version so it could be seen. It's my kind of T's and C's. Font selected, I'm going to use paper, and I'm probably going to make it all caps. There's double T's at the top here. Back arrow. Oh, don't like it in bold. Okay, you can carry on now to the next video. I'm going to go and play with fonts. Decide on sizes. But you, my friend, meet me in the next video for some more font amazing stuff. See you there. Okay, things you didn't know about your font menu. I'm going to grab the type tool, drag out a type box, paste some stuff in. I can't see it because I've got my preview on. Switch it back to normal. Okay, we'll hit the W key. I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can all see it. I'm using one of the shortcuts I use all the time. It's select all the text and hold down Command Shift and then the greater than key or the full stop period key. The comma key next to it goes down, and that goes up. If you're on a PC, that is Control-Shift, and use those same two keys. Great, so I've got my text. Actually, I'm going to select it with the whole box. I'm going to go back to my type tool, and up the top here, I'm going to drop this down. There's been some additions to InDesign that people haven't noticed. And one of my favorites is, let's say I pick Lust for this, and I go back in there. See this little wavy line there? Somehow, magically, if I click on this, InDesign will cut down the fonts on your machine, okay, the ones you have installed, and try and find ones that are very similar. You can see, pretty amazing. Like, it's picked the other Lust ones, but it's also picked ones that you can see here. Carina Pro, very similar, okay? It's just really handy if you're like, oh, I like this font, but I wish I had something similar, but different. Okay, you got to make sure you turn it off again, otherwise your font list is pretty small. Another thing to help speed up is that, let's say you're working at a company and you use the same fonts over and over again, okay? Instead of having to scroll through all your list to find them all, you can hit this little star system. So let's say that I use Roboto a lot, and Roboto Slab, where are you, Roboto Slab? And I've been using Lust, and let's say I need Helvetica as well. So down here somewhere, Helvetica, where are you, buddy? And there it is there, I'm going to turn the star on. What's really nice about once you've starred them is that, say you're working on your document, let's say now, okay, I can go back into my font menu and I can just turn on, see this option here? And it just has my stars. So instead of having that ginormous list, I can click on here and just go to my type tool and say, actually, I just want one of these guys, okay? You can pick from the drop-down list as well, okay, to pick my thin option. So super handy, but remember you can turn it off, otherwise your font list will forever be just these 5. Another option, I don't use very much, you can show just the Typekit ones that have been downloaded from Typekit. Often this will kind of indicate the ones that are a bit more special because you've spent some time downloading them. It can be useful. But the super useful one is this filter. Now for me, I keep meaning, every time I get a new MacBook Pro, I'm like, okay, this time I'm gonna go through and put all my fonts into some sort of like groups, handwriting, display, slab serif, all that sort of stuff. Never happens. But now InDesign has added magic in this filter here. You can go through and somehow, for the fonts on your machine, it went through and went, let's look at the script fonts. And it put them all in one big group. I don't know how it did it, but it's magic. Okay, same thing up the top here. We've got my slab serifs all together, all my handwritten fonts. Just needs to be one for, I feel like I got a lot of fonts that are like animal shaped like letters or cactuses or Christmas decorations. There's decorative, but it has none of my cactus fonts. Oh well. Let's go back to handwritten fonts, and I want this one to be, I'm going to use felt marker. Actually, I really don't like felt marker. I'm going to use Market OT. Cool, just like the rest of them, you've got to turn them on, otherwise you'll be stuck with this list. Sorry, turn it off, go back to all classes, and we're back to our full list. All right, I hope you found something awesome in that little font drop-down list. I know I use it lots, especially favorites. Let's get on to the next bit of font greatness. Okay, so there's 2 ways to make this work. Neither of them are in InDesign, so you're going to have to jump to either Typekit or Photoshop. I'll show you both. I'm going to use Photoshop. So in Photoshop, let's all go to Open, and I want you to go to your exercise files and go to 01 Spring Flyer, and there's Font Match 1. Now this is just a JPEG, okay? It could be a PDF where you don't have the font, and you just want to know what that font is. Maybe this one in the middle here. Grab the selection tool, okay, and draw a box around the font you want to pick, okay, and then go up to type, and there's one in here called Match Font. If you've got an earlier version of Photoshop, maybe 2015, this is not going to work, okay, but you can see here I selected it, and it just goes off and picks it. I know that it's Roboto Slab because I originally picked this font, but there's no physical way that Photoshop can actually pick. It's actually just going and checking on its database and seeing and trying to match the font style. You can see here, there's my Roboto Slab Light, even picked the weight, so good. And a lie, actually, I think it was Roboto Slab 100 that I used. Okay, but it gives you some other options as well. How good is it? It's pretty good. If it's a photograph that you've taken with your cell phone, I find that's less useful. Okay, but if it's just a JPEG you've pulled off the internet or an image from a website, that seems to work pretty well. Okay, so let's hit cancel and let's look at another version of picking the font. Let's jump to the Typekit website. Okay, if you go to Typekit and just go to the actual like homepage, so typekit.com, or click on this little icon here and come all the way back to the beginning outside of browse. There's this little option here. Okay, so I can grab the font match 2, click, hold and drag it. Okay, give it a sec. I'll show you this, so it looks like. That's what it looks like, okay? It's just a little snapshot. It's a JPEG, so there's no kind of like editable text. So there's bits and pieces all over the place. So in Typekit, it's kind of gone through and kind of guessed the font. Actually, I want to pick this one up here, not that font. I'm looking for this guy. So grab as much of it as you can. You might have to tidy things up in Photoshop, maybe to delete a background or to make it a little easier for it to guess. It says, please select a single line of text. Next step. It tries to guess the words. Okay, so you can help it. You can see it didn't get healing because of this little flourish at the top here. So I'm going to type in healing to help it out. Pretty good recognition though. Let's click next step. You can see here, it's picked lust. I know it's lust. You know it's lust because we've all started using it, but it's gone through and picked lust. Any other options it's given us? Lots of lust. There's another one here. That's very close. And it's one that can be synced from Typekit, which is cool. You can see, click sync and it will download. You can see some of these ones are paid ones, okay? And some of them can be synced. Why can some be synced and some paid? That this one here, Lust Display Italic, is part of your Typekit account, whereas this one's not. It's still Lust, but it's a different font, and you can go off and purchase it if you need it. So that's two ways of deciding how to pick fonts. Now there are a couple of other services like WhatTheFont. Okay, go to myfonts.com/whatthefont. It's pretty much exactly like Typekit. All right, so the last option is to use your cell phone. There is an option, there's an app that Adobe has. It's called Adobe Capture. Let's jump in here now and take a look at it. All right, so here I'm on my phone. I've got an Android phone. This app, the Adobe Capture one, is available both on iPhone and Android. So I'm gonna open it up. Now, there's a bunch of different options in here. We're gonna stick to type for the moment because that's the topic we're in. I'm gonna hit the little plus button down the bottom right. Now, this is me. And what it's looking for is you to find a bit of sample text. I'm using my business card. Why? Because I know the font, so I know if it gets it right or not. And yeah, line it up. Now, what I've found is that's looking all right, but I turn there, and there's down the bottom left there is turning the flash on. Okay, click the button. Awesome, so it's got it. Now you need to kind of like help it and say, by dragging these corners here, not him, but dragging these corners here. Okay, I'm not going to grab both of them because they're the same font but different weights. I'm not going to try and confuse it on purpose, I guess. So I'm going to pick this one and kick back, relax, and it picked the total right one. It impresses me. You can see Museo Sans rounded. It even picked the weight correctly. Okay, so it gives you other options. Okay, there's lots of them. You can see some of them are pretty close, right? Even though they're different fonts, they're very, very similar. So where this gets even better is you can click on the edit in the top right and you can play around with font size. Okay, you can go through and decide on, can you see there's the font style, okay, which is basically the weight. Okay, you can decide on all the different weights you can play around with. You can play around with tracking. Leading, actually, that's what I was doing there. Tracking, you can track it in, track it out. Okay, because what you're kind of doing now is you're building a character style that you could use in InDesign. So let's have a look at, let's change the text and just look at a sample bit of text. Okay, there, now my leading is being mixed up. Okay, I like it here now. Yeah, so you can play around with this. You get the idea, right? It's recognizes fonts. What's really magical is the arrow in the top right. Once I click on this one, I can create a character style. I can give it a name, and this is one's going to be, let's just say I'm going to use this for Maynooth Furniture now, because I love it, and I'm going to use it for, I don't know, headings. Can't think of anything. Okay, and save it to my library. Actually, I'm going to save it to my Maynooth Furniture one, click save, and it's going to appear in InDesign. It's magic. And then I can just start using it as a character style. Too good, okay? And that's going to be it for picking fonts. So yeah, we had a couple of different ways of doing it. I love this phone version, especially when you're out and about and you're like, oh, I love this one. I'm just going to appropriate or steal ideas from other people. Cool. All right, let's get on to the next video. In this video, we're going to look at font pairing. Basically just two fonts, a heading and a body copy that work well together. They're different fonts. We're going to work with Typekit font pairings and Google font pairings. Just a breakout of using the exact same fonts over and over again will give you some tools to go and find some nice new stuff. Okay, so let's say that you are like me and you end up using the same 2 fonts for everything. Okay, and you just need to kind of escape that. Or say you're a little bit new to design and you just want to know what looks good together. Easiest way is using the term called font pairings. Okay, so just go to Google and just type in font pairings. Okay, and decide on, like, I'm going to use Typekit. Okay, and the cool thing about this is I just switched to images, and it just gives you an idea, because we've used Typekit, it's going to be fonts you have access to. You don't have to like go off and try and work out what the font is. And yeah, you can just go through here and let's click on any of these ones, and you can start to see this person here. This is just a really nice way of kind of looking at it and going, actually, I like that combination. I think I like this one. So you can go into Typekit now, download Gibson and whatever that one's called, and start using it in your designs. So that's a nice easy one. You can do the exact same thing, obviously, for Google Fonts, and nice kind of pairings, and find something you like. I like that, which is Open Sans Condensed and Laura as the body copy. Now, another really cool place is something called justmytype.co. Now, what you can do is you can come down here and you can look at Typekit pairings, click on it. Now, the one thing you have to do is you have to wait a long time for this page to load, because there's so many fonts. Fonts on a website take a long time to load. So you need to give this, literally walk away and give it like 1 to 5 minutes to load. Okay, and because it'll just load with probably Times New Roman until it's downloaded the font. You'll be like, it's not very good. But now what you can do is you can kind of see a really nice kind of version of all of these as well. Okay, the Typekit fonts, sort of the same thing as looking at the images, but it gives you actually direct links to these from Typekit. Just some really nice stuff in here as well. Okay, so that is font pairing. So that Dan does not keep using Museo and Roboto and Lust over and over again. Okay, so to get our free icons, we need to use the Adobe Creative Cloud app. Now on a Mac, it's up the top here. You can see this like little Creative Cloud icon. Click on that. If you're on a PC, it's in the bottom right of your desktop, okay, and you'll find a similar looking icon. If you can't find it either of those places, you might have to go to your applications on your machine and try and find the Creative Cloud app and open it up. Inside of here, jump to Assets, and we're going to work in Market. Now, Market is the place where we've got lots of commercial use, free to use in your designs, icons, mainly icons. There's some graphics and textures and some UI design in here as well. Now, this little thing goes on forever, so you're going to have to use the little search icon. And what we're looking for is like a tag or a price tag or a swing tag. Now you can see there's a lot of tags you can pick from. Okay, so go through, find the one that you want to use. I'm going to use just this first one here. I'm going to click on it. And one thing you can do when you're clicking on the icons in here, the ones you want to use, if you find an SVG version, a scalable vector graphic, they're probably the best to use. Why is that? They're a vector. Okay, and all it just means is that you get to easily change the shape and the colors. If it's a JPEG or a PNG, you've got to do stuff in Photoshop, and it becomes a little harder to do. So it's an SVG. I'm going to click download. I'm going to create a library. Okay, you probably, depending on if you're using libraries already, you might just have one called My Library. I'm going to make one, create a library called, this one's for a company called Manuth Furniture. That's one we'll do a lot of work with. Okay, I'm going to click return. Did it download it to it? I'm not sure. I'm going to click on it again and close that back up. Now in my CC Libraries panel, if you can't find it, it's under Window, CC Libraries. Okay, and I'm going to change it from My Library to this new one that I've made called Manuth Furniture. And there's my tag. Okay, I can drag it out, and the only problem with dragging this particular one out, it's ginormous. Whoever made it and put it up to the Adobe Market, you can see this giant tag. Okay, so maybe it might be a little easier if you right click it over here and say place linked. Okay, and you get a little place gun where you can just drag it out and give it a size. So it was way too big to start with. But that's an okay size. I'm going to shrink it down and I'm going to rotate it around. Okay, so it's kind of, I'm going to drag it over here, rotate it around, so it's kind of in there-ish. Now what I want to do is I want to put some text on it. I want to put black text on it, so I have to change the color. There's not an easy way of changing color in InDesign. It's not really a job for InDesign to kind of get in the SVG and change the colors of it or the shape. It's really a job for Illustrator. It's easy to do. All you got to do is double click it over here and it'll open up in either Photoshop or Illustrator, whatever the whatever it was made in. This one was made in Illustrator. And the easy thing to do is grab the white arrow, click on any of the colors you want to change. And in here you can use, I'm gonna go to properties and I'm gonna go to fill and I'm just gonna pick a random color for the moment. Hit save. You'll notice in my libraries here, it's updated. If I jump into InDesign, you'll see it's updated. Over here, okay, is this one hasn't updated. You go to your links panel and do nothing. It just automatically updated. So you don't have to do anything. Don't go to the links panel. Okay, so it's a nice easy connection now. If I make a change in here, save it, it updates in InDesign. So that's the Creative Cloud Market option, and there's just so much in here. Okay, you'll find loads of icons. I use it quite a bit for UI web design options. Okay, so if you are doing kind of more design for digital, okay, some really nice stuff in here as well, and they're free commercial use. And often these things are editable. Okay, you'll be able to open them up in Photoshop or Illustrator or InDesign and be able to kind of change the text and fonts and colors. There's lots of good stuff in here. Okay, so that's the Assets Market in the Adobe Creative Cloud app. But before we go, I'm just gonna kind of bring this to the front. Same shortcut as earlier, Command Shift and use the second square brackets next to the P key. It's the kind of second one across. That'll bring it all the way to the front, or right click and go Arrange and say bring to front. Okay, and I'm just gonna rotate them around, get them to line up here. And this is where you can go off to the next video because I'm just going to put a few returns in, play around with this, and get it so it all kind of fits. I'm going to select all this and I want to lower the leading as well. So the nice little shortcut is hold down the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC and use your down arrow. That'll make it bigger. I want the opposite of that and use up. Okay, up will decrease the leading automatically. Okay, or you can do it obviously in your paragraphs, character, and there it is there. Okay, that's your leading. So I've got them nicely together. Okay, that looks good to me. And before we go as well, remember I've got Opentype fonts, and this one here, what font did I even use? Type tool, this one's called Market OT. Is it in Typekit? It is Market OT, it's a Typekit font you can download as well. And because it's Opentype, click down here, you can say stylistic sets, set 8. Can you see the ends change to be a bit more clear? I think I like that, where it's a lot clearer in. Less scribbly, but probably a little easier to understand. And remove that little tag off there. Now definitely go to the next video now. See ya. Hi there, in this video we're going to use the Color Theme tool to steal colors from an image and then get to reuse it throughout the document. Going from the random green that we picked to some colors that actually start matching the background. Okay, so first up we'll start with the Color Theme tool. Now the Color Theme tool is kind of hidden over here. You might be on your eyedropper tool, so just click and hold it down and make sure you're on this top option here called the Color Theme tool. Now what it does is you can click anywhere on your page, doesn't really matter where actually. Click over here, you'll notice that InDesign goes through and picks 5 color swatches from your images. And why do we do this? It's so that we can start matching colors, because this green in here doesn't really match the colors in the background. It's kind of randomly picked it from Illustrator earlier on. So, and what I want to do is actually pick colors that match this background image, let that lead the color themes for this flyer. You'll notice though that even though I clicked on my image, it actually picked the green from this tag. So it doesn't really matter where you click on your page, it grabs all the colors from the entire page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click off and actually delete this tag. Actually, I'm going to cut it. Okay, so I've got it in my clipboard so I can paste it back in. Now if I go to that color theme tool and click anywhere, you'll notice that I get colors, but they exclude that green color now. Great, so if I like these 4 colors, what I can do is I can click on this and add it to my swatches. Here's my swatch panel down here, or I can add it to my Creative Cloud library, which is open over here. What you can also do is see this little triangle here, or this little arrow, click on that, and you can go through and pick kind of versions of that. It's defaulted to colorful, but we can switch to dark, okay, deep, and muted. Okay, they all look very similar. I'm gonna be using the colorful ones in this option. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add them to my swatches over here. You can see over here, it's created a color group with these colors inside of it. Cool, so what I'm going to do is actually, I might add all of these to my library, okay, because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to paste that across, Okay, so that little option there adds them to the library. And there's the 4 colors from my color theme tool. Next thing I want to do is I want to use it to recolor this tag. Okay, so I'm going to paste my tag back in. Remember I cut it before, so I'm going to paste it back in place. I need to move it down one. Okay, so Command and first square bracket on a Mac, or Control first square bracket just to send it backwards. I'm going to double click it over here in my library. It's going to open up Illustrator. Cool, here it is in Illustrator, and you can see because I'm using my libraries, the color swatches come along, which is really handy. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to go over here and pick one of these. Probably this one for my tag, hit save, close it down, back into InDesign, give it a second, it updates there, and eventually will update over here. Great. So next thing I can do with the color theme tool is I can actually just use it like an eyedropper. I can click on this color and actually say I want you to be the orange color. Oh, select on the text, click on that background bit there. I can say I want that to be there. I want you to be that color. And yeah, you can kind of move your way around the document. But we only have a couple of squares to color in, so that's going to be it for me. Hey there, in this video we're going to look at color modes in InDesign. What are color modes? Basically it's how these colors interact with the background colors. So this black here isn't just transparent, okay, it's doing something a little bit nicer with the background. You can see this orange box here, or this orange circle, has a nice kind of interaction with the background as well. And these are called color modes. Let's go and look at how to make those now. Color modes are kind of an advanced thing, mostly done in Photoshop, but you can do it here in InDesign, and I'll show you what they do. Let's grab the ellipse tool. Okay, and I'm going to click, hold, and drag out a big ellipse. If you hold shift while you're dragging it, it makes a perfect circle. If you hold down the option key on a Mac as well, so shift and option, or if you're on a PC, it's shift and alt, you can drag from the center. That can be kind of handy. Okay, so I'm going to drag this up here, and I'm going to put it, I'm just making kind of a background thing. I'm going to send it to all the way to the back, and then move it in so it's just above my image there. Now I'm going to pick one of the colors. I'm going to pick this orange here, and color modes are in effects. Okay, and we're going to go to transparency. That's the one that I use the most. You can go to object effects the long way and go to transparency. It doesn't matter. Okay, you get to the same place. And what we're looking for is this one here called blending modes. Normal is what it is by default. We're just going to look at some of these other options in here. Multiply often gives us kind of the thing we're looking for, and that's what I'm looking for, just some sort of like connection with the background. Because if you just go to normal and lower the opacity, it gets kind of like this washed out kind of color. Okay, whereas if you use one of these blending modes, you can get some more interesting connections with that background color. Okay, now multiply is not the only one. Go through the range and see what you might want to do. Okay, you can see there's some interesting effects. So I'm just doing it because I want a different effect. I'm going to go to hard light. Let's go crazy. Okay, so that is blending modes. We'll use it quite a bit in this course. And the other thing I want to do is this thing here, maybe this image is just a bit too bright. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, and I'm going to use another color mode. And the one I use the most is multiply. So I'm going to put in a big rectangle over the top of this. I'm going to fill it with black, which is the top here. Click on black. And I'm going to send it to the back again, bring it forward one. Okay, so it's just above my image, and I'm going to go back to that transparency mode. Cool, and we're going to use multiply, and I'm going to lower the opacity down a little bit. Just so we get this kind of like nice, I don't know, darkening the background, that's all I'm doing. All right, that's it for color modes. Let's look at the next color trick. Hey there, in this video we're going to do a couple of things. We are going to import existing colors from other documents. We're also going to bring in brand colors from other brand companies and put them all together in our swatches panel as groups. We'll also change the default colors forever so that whenever you make a new document you'll have colors ready to go. We'll also show you how to clean them up at the end as well. All right, let's get started with that. Okay, so next color trick is going to be, let's say that we've got a document, this document here, but we need to bring in the Maynooth Furniture brand colors, and we don't have them in here. Okay, we could start creating them by hitting this little new color swatch here, and okay, double clicking this and typing it in if we know the CMYK colors. Okay, and that's fine, but let's say that we already have done that work in another document. We just want to pull it in, and it's easy to do. Okay, so in your swatches panel, it's under Window, Color, and find swatches. Go to the little hamburger menu here. Okay, click on that and go to load swatches. Now there is a fancy way of exporting specifically just swatches. Okay, it's called an ASE file, but that's an Adobe Swatch Exchange file, but nobody does that, or there's an easier way to do it at least, is you can actually just point at an InDesign file that has them. So this is just an old article that we've made. I know it already has the brand colors I need in there, and I just want to steal them from it. So all you do is click on the INDD file and you say, give it to me, please. Click open. You see there, it looked in it and it found all of these colors. Okay, MF purple, pink, green, and yellow. Cool, so that is an easy way to just steal colors and pull them through. Now the only trouble with this is if I open up a new document and go to document and click OK and create, and you can see it's gone back to my defaults. Okay, so there isn't the Maynooth furniture colors in anymore. So the way to get that in there for good, let's say that you're working for Maynooth furniture, okay, and you just want them in there permanently. So what you can do is, like lots of things in InDesign, to change the default, just have nothing open. Back to the screen, go from start to essentials to kind of open it back to life. And in my swatches panel here, do the exact same thing. Just go to load swatches, pick the InDesign file, click OK. You can see there they are. And what happens now is if I go to file new and open up any old document, you'll notice that there they all are ready to be used. Quick, simple, easy, awesome. Another cool thing we can do is I'm going to change the defaults, because let's say that I'm going to close this all down. Let's say that I am a freelancer, okay, which I am, okay. I do lots of work for different clients. Is that Maynooth Furniture is maybe just one of my clients. I've got lots of them. So what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to put them in a bit of a group and bring in lots of other ones. So you can put them in color groups. So I'm going to click all of these, click the first one, hold shift, grab the last one. And then see down the bottom here is a little folder. They call them color groups. Look like a folder, act like a folder, and I can double click this and say you are Maynooth Furniture. Okay, twirl it up, and yeah, I've got those colors ready to go whenever I start a new document. Let's bring in some other clients. So let's go to the flyout menu, let's load swatches, and let's have a look at brand colors for FedEx. Okay, there they all are. I'm gonna grab you guys, and all right. Put them in a color group, and we've got FedEx as well. Okay, I want you to do the last one by yourself. There's another one in there for Google. Okay, so go through and put them into a group. And I'll see you here in a second. And we're back, and there's Google loaded. There's one condition to kind of consider when you are working with this, is that if you can see I've got Maynooth, FedEx, and Google in there. If I go to my old document that we're just working on, where are you? This one here. Because this was created before I was working through all of those kind of projects, you can see in here they don't have the default. So it doesn't update them through every document, it's every new document you work on. So there are some drawbacks. It's not going to kind of throw it into every existing document, just on every single new document. So handy, not as handy as it could be. A way to get around this is just to make a document. Okay, so if I make a document here, and okay, so this document, untitled, it's got all of these in here. Okay, and I can just save this onto my server somewhere if we're sharing it, or I'm just going to put mine on my desktop in my InDesign Advanced coursework, and I'm going to call this one Dan's Brand Colors. Close it down, and he doesn't do anything other than he has those guys. And we can do this exact same thing. Back at my flyer here, I can say, actually, go to here, go to load swatches, and let's find desktop, and Dan's Brand Colors. And I'm just using him just to bring through all my colors. That's his only job in the world. Blank page, but he has the swatches. Okay, so you're sick of swatches? Not finished yet. We've got a little bit more to go. I want to show you some other cool stuff. So I'm going to close this down and not save it. With nothing else open, there's a couple of things we can do. Is that these guys, okay? These guys are the ugliest color mixes ever. They're just like, no, the green you'll never use. The red, that's not quite nice. 100% yellow. Just these colors here, if you don't like them and you never use them. Okay, I always use the magenta. He's kind of like a color that I used for a warning and for stuff. But let's say we're not going to use them. If I delete them from here, this little trash can, okay, that's deleting them forever. Every time I make a new document, I'll just have these brand colors. I'm not going to now because as a trainer, I need to have these colors in here whenever I start a class because, yeah, I just do. So you can delete them and they're gone forever. Can you delete registration? Registration is one of those weird ones where you should never use it. Okay, if you're not sure what registration black is, it's all the colors. It's 100% black, cyan, magenta, and yellow. Just if you're not too sure what that is either, just don't use it. Use black. Okay, registration shouldn't be in there, but you can't delete these guys in brackets. Cool. One last thing I'd like you to do, is not the last thing, but it's just another thing. Let's have a look at that file we're working on. Is that sometimes you get to the end of the job and you're like, man, there's just stuff in here. Like, ooh, there might be lots of different unnamed colors and it's just really hard to work on. Okay, what you can do is there's a nice option in here. So have nothing selected. Okay, black arrow, just click in the background, nothing selected. Go into here and there's an option in here saying select all unused. This is really nice. You go select all unused and it goes through everything in the document that hasn't been used and then you can just bin it. And you're like, huh. Then you realize, what the hang is cyan? That goes selected. Actually, I'm not sure. I can go to my separations panel, which we'll look in a little bit, but so it's gone through and ripped out everything we don't need. And I have no idea where that cyan swatch is. All right, so the next color treat we'll look at is this one here, which is color.adobe.com. And you might have used it before. If you haven't, you load up a create. Create's interesting. I like explore. And it just allows me to look at colors, just, nice mixes of colors, nice 5 color swatches for a project. I definitely have the habit of using the exact same colors for every single project. So this is a way of me starting a new job, starting a new client, and going, actually, I'm going to do something different. And at the top here, you can play around with most popular this month or all time, okay? And you can decide, oh yeah, I'm liking this one, okay? And you can either download it as an ASC file and load it using the same method we just used to load Google and FedEx, or you can just, this one's easy. As long as you're logged in, you can see my little smiley face there. I'm logged into color.adobe.com and I can click on save and it'll say, actually, I want to load this into Maynooth Furniture. Hit save and hopefully in a second, it'll appear in Maynooth Furniture. Let's have a little look. There he is there. Cool, and I can start using it. That is color.adobe.com. I'm going to delete this because I don't actually want it. Goodbye. Hey there, in this video we're going to look at pre-pressing, okay, looking at why colors look like this in InDesign, but look like this when they print. Boo, where did my colors go? I'll toggle it back and forth so you can check, look. Good, bad, good, bad. Let's go and check that out now in InDesign. So what's happening? It's basically just the difference between how your computer screen or your laptop screen shows you colors. It uses something called RGB, and your printer uses a different set of colors. It uses CMYK. And unfortunately, CMYK can't reach the same kind of richness as RGB. The big difference is that your screen has electricity running through it, right? It has like light being forced out of it with electronics. So it can achieve some really kind of like bright colors and rich blacks, but CMYK, okay, which is your printer that sits next to you on your desktop, or you send it off to a commercial printer, they use the same set of colors. It doesn't get to use any electricity, okay? It gets to use just plain old white paper. So there's not the same colors in there. So there's nothing really you can do about it, but what you can do is you can prepare yourself to proof it before it goes out. So to do it, it's really easy. You go to view and just turn on proof colors and watch. Just kind of washes out. Okay, some colors are affected more than others. Okay, so you saw at the beginning there on the intro, I toggled it back and forth and you saw it was really obvious when you toggled it, but often like this thing here would print just fine. Okay, I wouldn't be too worried about any sort of big changes, but it's handy to check if there are big changes because some documents do have it. So I'm going to open up a file. You can do it too. Go to File Open and go to your exercise files in O1 Spring even. Okay, go to the one that says proofing colors. Open that up. Okay, so in here, I've got some colors that I know do badly. Okay, so we're going to check out how badly they are. Prepare yourselves. Let's go to view. Let's go to proof colors. Hold on. Okay, so unfortunately, this is just the way CMYK is going to display. It's not going to be exactly the way your screen's going to it's trying to replicate it as good as it can. Okay, but on, off. Okay, so all of these colors have a really rich color, depth that you've got to be prepared for losing when it go out to CMYK. There's kind of some things you can do to get around it using something called Pantone colors, but you're getting into higher costs and some trickier setup. But that's something to look into if you want to kind of like keep a really strong, rich brand color. And another thing you can do is we're just using under view, we're using the default. So proof color turns this setup on and off. We're using just the generic document CMYK. And what you can do is your printer can send you settings, okay, for their specific printer. Okay, they might be using some sort of Heidelberg 71243B, okay, some sort of setup file. They can send it to you. Okay, and what you can do is you can go to custom and you can load it into there. Okay, and when you pick it, okay, go into custom, pick the settings that they've sent you. When you turn proof colors on, it's going to match their machine a little bit better, because we talk about CMYK as being 4 colors, but some printers do use more than 4 colors. You can use 6 and 8 and 10 colors to get a closer representation of RGB. So maybe reach out to them, say, have you got the proof setups that I could use for InDesign to really kind of match it. All right, one thing before we go is we'll just talk about rich blacks real quick. So what happens in InDesign is that I'm going to grab this guy here and I'm going to switch him to black. Okay, so that's what black looks like. If I switch it to proof setup, you're going to notice that we all know that when we draw something black and we try and print it, it does this. It goes just a little bit gray and washed out. A way to get around that is to create what's called a rich black. Now, a rich black is just 100% cyan, but you add a few other colors just to kind of back it up. So imagine you've got 4 colors lying in front of you in a paint tin. Okay, you've got 1 tin of cyan, which is this fella, 1 tin of magenta, and 1 tin of yellow, and 1 tin of black. Okay, so those are the colors that a printer uses. But what you can do is you can actually mix a little bit of these together with the black, and it still looks black, but it gives it kind of a rich feeling. It's called a rich black. Now, there's no absolute 100% rich black formula. Okay, some people, let's say I'm going to mix a rich black. So I'm going to create a new swatch. So new swatch. Okay, I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to call this one, instead of black copy, I'm going to call this one rich black. And some people just add a little bit of cyan, 20% cyan, okay? And if I click OK, you'll notice that it got a bit darker there. Okay, it's just, let's turn the preview on and off. Can you see it's just, it might be hard to see on the video, but it's just a little bit darker. And some people just use that as their rich black. I prefer, there's no like, I guess the big thing is there's no like 100% complete definition of what this should be. I like to use 20, 20, 20, and that gives me a bit more ink on the page, but also gives me a bit more of a rich black. Okay, you don't want to go too high. You don't want to put it at 100, 100, 100, 100. Why? Because then the inks all go on top of each other. They start bleeding around the edges and getting bigger. Plus, often the pages start sticking together. I'm not sure if you've ever done it. You've printed a couple of photographs back to back or right after each other and they start sticking. It's because it has a too strong a black mix. The best thing is to ask your printer. Another thing you can do with rich black is, say you want a bit more of a kind of a, I'm going to go up to 60 with the yellow. Okay, that'll give you a kind of a warmer black. And if you do the opposite and go with, say, 60 in here, you'll get a kind of a midnight kind of black. Okay, so talk to your printer about what you're trying to do. The other thing to consider for rich black, it should never be done with small type. Okay, so if I grab my type tool here and draw out small type, and I decide that I'm going to use, instead of black, I'm going to use rich black. So select it all, rich black. The only trouble with this is that when it prints, it's so small and so delicate that it's actually running through a printer. Okay, imagine a bit of paper running through, the ink goes on, so the black goes on, nice and sharp. Then they put some cyan on it and they try and line it up and it lines up pretty good. Okay, and they put a line on top so it gets a bit darker. Then they try again with the yellow and then the magenta. And if there's any small movement in the printers, okay, especially the big commercial ones, they vibrate all over the place. Your type's going to look a bit blurry. So don't use rich black ever for type. Just deal with just solid black. Click on T and click on solid black. Okay, so rich black is bad for type, but if your type's getting large and it's kind of like a slab serif, big chunky type, anything kind of above like 18 will probably handle a rich black. But talk to your printer, they might just go, no way, our printer wiggles around too much for that. But big boxes like this, great. Big chunky bits of type that you might be using for kind of like hero text, definitely. Icons, yeah, that'll work too, but small type, no good for rich blacks. And basically that's the reason everyone tells you not to use this registration. I wish you could delete it, you can't, okay? Because what that does is it goes, can you see it goes really black? That's awesome. But if I use registration black, it will stick together. Okay, it will print, especially for type. Okay, we talked about a second ago. If I do that for registration, it's really going to be bad. Okay, it's going to be so much ink on the page, these little types are going to bleed. So don't use rich black, even though we can't delete it. Okay, it just needs to stay there. So before you finish, go view, turn proof colors back on. And if you are just working digitally, okay, and you're going out via email or website or publish online or EPUB, okay, it doesn't matter. You're going to be printing in RGB and not actually printing at all. You're just going to be saving it as a PDF, right? So don't sweat that stuff. But definitely give it a check before you send it to the print to see if there's any kind of horrible changes like we have in front of us here with those colored bars. All right, I hope you learned something there. Let's get on to the next video. Hi there, in this video we're going to do cool things with Gridify where we drag out, is it one image? No, it's a couple of images all at once, all the same size. Plus things like this where I draw a line and I grab it and I drag it down and then I make loads of versions in between. I'm not sure what I'm doing there, but let's learn how to do that plus a few other cool little tricks here in InDesign. Okay, so first thing is create a blank document. I've got no margins, I've got US letter, half letter. Okay, and I've got a landscape, any old shape you like. We're gonna make it, I've saved it as raw cycles catalog. Okay, so to use the Gridify tool, you pick any shape. Okay, so rectangle, ellipse, or polygon, anything you want. Start dragging out with your mouse. Keep your mouse held down, so don't let go like that. Hold it down, and before you let go, okay, use your up arrow, and then the right arrow. And that'll just keep adding circles, okay? Going back the other way, so left and down, we'll get rid of them. Okay, so just have a little practice with how many you need. Okay, you can drag out loads of them and then just keep dragging out with your mouse. Hold shift if you want to be perfect circles. Okay, and let go when you're ready. You'll have lots of little circles or squares or stars. Okay, I'm going to delete those. I'm going to grab the rectangle tool and do something. So I'm going to drag it out, okay, and then tap right twice and up once. So I've got kind of a group of 6. Now, see the spaces in between them? You can adjust as well. All you need to do is hold down on a Mac, the Command key, or on a PC, the Control key. Okay, so holding I haven't let go of my mouse. I'm also holding down the Command or Control key and use the up arrow. You'll see it supposes the spaces more in there in the middle, and down arrow gets rid of them. Just keep tapping the down arrow. It's a bit of finger gymnastics. You're like, oh, is this really that easy? Maybe not. Okay, but it's cool. Gridify is awesome. Okay, left and right does the gaps horizontally. I always say horizontally, I mean vertically. Okay, so you can do a nice kind of like grid like that. I'm going to delete that, draw out another one. Another thing you can do is I'm going to make the same kind of cube shapes. I'm going to switch to this one here, the gap tool, the tool you never use. Okay, the fourth tool down, and its job is, you can see, I can click and drag and it starts adjusting the space in between different boxes. Okay, so it's just a really handy way of like keeping the exact same measurements but moving things around. You can also hold down a couple of keys to get some other tricks. Hold down the shift key, okay, and it will just move one of these. Okay, another key is hold down the Alt key on a PC or the Option key on a Mac, and you can see it kind of like changes it to moving like a huge kind of connected chunk. Another shortcut is hold down the Command key on a Mac or Control key on a PC. Okay, and you can see I can close them up or open them up. Okay, yeah, so a couple of little shortcuts. You'll never remember exactly, but smash away at the keys when you got the gap tool, and it's really easy to kind of eventually find the one you want. Okay, it's really good for handy for margins. Okay, say you've got some logos all lined up and you just need to push the margins away a little bit. You can see I can kind of do that. Holding different keys gives me different effects. They all look like the same effect, but yeah, I can grab all of these and just kind of move them up. Okay, that is the gap tool used with the Gridify tool. Another thing you can use with the Gridify tool, so I'm going to select all these and delete them, is you can do it with text boxes, which is handy. Grab the text box, okay, start dragging out, and I'm going to drag it all the way across and use my right arrow, just like with the rectangle tool, I get boxes, but these guys are all linked text boxes. So if I go to type and go to fill with placeholder text, genius. All right, so it's worked with shapes and it's worked with text. What if it would work with images? And it totally does. And this is probably its best use. I'm not sure I waited to the end to show you, but go to exercise files, go to O2 and go to image 1 to 6. I clicked on the first image here, held shift, grabbed the, clicked on the 6th one and it selects them all. So I got them all selected. A little side note before we do the main event trick is that, can you see 6 is in the brackets there? If I use my arrow keys to tap along, just use your right arrow, it will toggle through the images. If I click on right, okay, for some reason mine doesn't update. It used to, there it goes, it updates. It's a bit weird. Hit down. Yours will. Mine used to work, mine stopped working. So just use your left and right arrows, and you can just decide on which image to print, to drop in first. That's why that's quite useful. Okay, so if yours is working, mine's not, there it is, it switches out. I've got to give my mouse a wiggle for some reason. So that's one thing. So what I'd like to do is drag out. I'm going to click and drag out, but before I let go, we're going to do our Gridify tool. Exactly like we did before. This one's got a fixed height and width because that's what the images came from. But if I use the right arrow, you can see I can do my kind of like up 1 across 2, okay, to get my images here. I could remember hold down Command and use up and down, okay, to change the spacing between them if I wanted to. But that's going to work for me. I'm going to do something that looks like that, and yeah. That is a super quick and easy way just to dump them all on the page. They're all the same size, which is great, rather than trying to import them all and scale them all down together or change them all separately. One thing I might do though is that they've kind of fit in there, but they've got this kind of like white area on the outside with them all selected. So right click any of them. If you're on a Mac, hold down Control and click any of them if you don't have a right click, and go to Fitting. And this is the one we want, fit frame to content. So that shortcut there, not a sexy shortcut, but it's one of the ones that I use quite often. Watch this, when I hit it, okay, it just wraps the frame around the box. So that's just a really quick way, I guess, to make them snap to the edges. That particular one, just as a side note, works great for text boxes as well. So say you're drawing something and this is my title. Okay, and I mean, look, all this area around here I don't need. That exact same shortcut, Command Option C. Okay, we'll just wrap the text box around it, which is handy. And if you're on a PC, that's Control Alt C. Okay, and you want to know, or just remember, right click, go to Fitting, and Fit Frame to Content will work there. Awesome. Okay, next part of that kind of whole shifting things around gap tool Gridify thing is, let's go to page 2, and it's something called Live Distribute. Okay, so let's draw out a rectangle. I'm going to use my Gridify to make it into, say, this many of them. Okay, and what I'd like to do is, let's say I want to kind of adjust the spacing between them all. Okay, I've got a couple of options. I could kind of like drag them out, okay, and then drag you out to be the same distance. And live, smart guides will try to automatically, you see, goes, oh, magic, do you mean these sizes? And you can see little green arrows match the sizes up. But then you've got to kind of stretch the top ones out, and you want to kind of disperse them perfectly. So with them all selected, the shortcut's a little hard to remember. It's a weird shortcut. Okay, so you start dragging, okay, and that's not what I want. I just want the gaps to get bigger, right? So if I start dragging, if I hold down the spacebar tool after I started dragging, so I'm holding, dragging with my mouse, then hold spacebar, cool, huh? So it's my little squares, and I just get to play with the spacing between. I'm going to undo. Same with the bottom. Remember, drag first, and while I'm dragging, holding spacebar, okay, it'll kind of separate them out. And great for the bottom right as well. So start dragging, and then hold spacebar, and you can kind of live distribute all of these guys here. Hold shift, and it will kind of lock the height and width. It's just a really nice way of opening up gaps, and it can be text boxes, it can be images, anything you like. Live distribute. If you hold spacebar first and then start dragging, you end up moving this around or going into the like zoom preview thing. So make sure drag first, then hit spacebar. Another thing we're going to do in this kind of like super fantabulous drawing modes is I'm going to actually, I don't want these pink boxes. I want you guys to be on actually page 2, not page 1. So I'm going to go to page 1 now. So there you go, page 1, zoom in. Okay, and we're going to do some lines. So grab the line tool. Okay, and I'm going to make sure my stroke is set to black, and I'm going to have the fill set to none. Okay, so I'm going to have a 2-point stroke. Okay, so just going to draw a line like that. So what I'm going to draw is I'm going to hold shift while I'm dragging. It gives me a straight line. And another thing I'm going to do is I want a duplicate of it. So I'm going to grab my black arrow, and you may or may not know this already. If you hold Alt key on a PC or Option key on a Mac while you're dragging, you can get a duplicate. Okay, so if you just drag it obviously without that key, it just moves it around. But if you hold Alt while you're dragging, it gives you another version. And this is what brings us into this next cool little trick is if I do that, okay, and I'm holding Alt to drag it, but I haven't let go of my mouse yet. Okay, so I haven't let go. Use your up arrow like Gridify. Oh, there's one in the middle there. It's a little hard to see, I guess, in this video because it's only faint. Another one. They go into this weird line. Don't worry about all those lines, but look. I get to kind of like, I'm pressing up loads and I just get loads to join them too. Let go of the mouse, and it's a really easy way instead of like maybe step and repeat or what is it called in here? It's called, Yeah, it's called step and repeat. You might have done it in Illustrator. Okay, so super handy, super useful. I'm going to draw out a box. Same thing. I'm going to give it a fill color, an ugly fill color, and hold down Alt, drag it across, and before I let go of my mouse, up key, and it joins the two. I can hit the right key as well. Okay, and it gives me kind of like a Gridify thing going on of that object. I don't use that one so much, but yeah, play around with it, drag it out holding Alt or Option on a Mac, and use the up key and maybe the right key, and you get lots of multiples of it to fill in the gap. All right, so that's going to be it for super fantastic drawing techniques. I'm now going to follow on with our little tutorial. Okay, so it's going to be a bit of a production video, so you can continue watching or skip to the next one because we're going to import some images and build out our home page because we want to actually end up with something nice. So I'm going to go to File, Place, and I'm going to go to O2 Drawing, find cover image. I'm going to drag this one out from this edge, okay, to this edge. It's a little big, so I'm going to grab my black arrow. If you're bored already, you can move on. So I've got this. I want to use my little line tool trick. Okay, so I'm going to drag a line that goes holding shift, so it's a perfect line. I'm going to fill mine with actually white. It's going to be 2 points. Okay, I'm going to drag it so it's kind of in the middle of the document, somewhere like that. Holding Alt down on a PC, Option on a Mac, to drag it down to the bottom. Okay, and before I let go of the mouse, I'm going to use my up arrow because I want this kind of like stripy 80s, I want to say, kind of line going. Maybe a bit past there. Great. I'm going to lower the opacity of all of these guys. I just want this kind of like stripy line thing going in the background. Why am I doing it? It's mainly so I have an excuse to use that little line trick. We're going to bring in a logo, so nothing selected. Bring in the logo.ai and drag it out so it'll be in the middle here. And on page 2, I want to kind of tidy this up. I'm going to grab my type tool. This is going to be my bike catalog. Catalog. I have no idea if that's spelled right. I'm that bad. I'm going to change the color because I want to put this in the background. So I'm going to draw this. I'm going to grab the eyedropper tool. So instead of the color theme tool, which we've used, the eyedropper tool just steals colors. And you can steal it from images. So I'm going to steal from this kind of color here. Let's put it around my stroke. So there's a little arrow here. He toggles between being the pink on the stroke, can you see it? To the pink now being in the fill. That's what I want. Okay, so I want you, and do I want anything else? I am not sure. Yeah, let's do a slashy thing. So I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm totally now just trying to make it look okay. I'm going to rotate it around. I've hit the W key. W key is the preview key. Okay, just gets rid of all the background stuff if you haven't already done that. And I'm going to grab him, bring my fill to the front. Okay, and over here, I'm going to switch it to a slightly darker color. Often it's easy to go to CMYK to switch this around because you can just drag that K slider up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to stick both of them and send them to the back and then hit the W key again. Oh, that's what I'm kind of trying to do. All right, that feels like it's got a white stroke around the outside. Does it? Or is it just a bit small? Coming up. Yeah, it's just not attached to the edges. Cool. Could be bored. And you can hear the dog in the background. This is such an amazing video, Dan. All right, bike catalog, doing it, just finishing some basics. All right, it's not that good. All right, so that's gonna be it for this video. Finally, get into the next one. We're gonna do some cool stuff with strokes and arrows and stuff. Let's go do that one. Hey there, in this video we're going to look at arrowheads and some more advanced stroke things. It's not super exciting, but we all need to know how to make arrows, and there's some little tricks you can use to help your workflow. All right, I'm on page 3, and let's look at arrowheads first. So I've got the line tool. I'm going to drag out a line. I'm going to make it a bit thicker. Okay, make sure my stroke is at black and I've got a thickness of 5 point. Now the stroke panel might look like this, okay, where it's quite small. You can only change the weight. You can double click this little tab here and it gets ginormous, okay, and get a lot more options. And this is what we're looking for. So the first one is the start and end. Basically, this is easy where you get your arrowheads. So depending on how you've drawn your line, so start is where I first started drawing. So I want the opposite way. So I want you to be there, a little barbed end one. It's not the one I like. Okay, I'm just going to have the I just want the triangle, and the start I might do, I don't know, I feel like an Austin Powers love mail symbol thing. It's one of those. Now, one of the things and the new things for 2018 is that when you scaled it up, okay, you end up getting kind of like disproportionately sized ends and beginnings. You can see like that's ginormous compared to that, okay, because the stroke is the same around the outside. But now what you can do is see scale. It's kind of a new thing. So I am going to scale this end bit up. You can see here I can kind of raise it up. Okay, and I can make it nice and big there to kind of match everything else there. So that's a new feature. It's not really a feature, but it's something we've all been missing. And one of the little tricks I did there was, can you see I'm making it smaller by clicking it? And it's just going down 1% at a time, slowly. Okay, if I hold Shift and click that exact same option, can you see it does it in multiples of 10. So I find, well, this is just a really handy thing for anything. Okay, if you want to raise the weight of this, okay, but you want to do it in big chunks, hold Shift. Any sort of option here with a number, if I want to make this go up by 1%, I just click it, but if I hold Shift and click it, it goes up by multiples of 10. Okay, so what is that? It's looking kind of cool there at that size. I think I like it. All right, one of the other things for strokes that it's useful is I'm going to zoom in on this thing here. And I guess what I want to show you is, it's a little hard to see. Maybe I'll change the stroke to black so it's easier, maybe a bit more contrast. Yeah, there it is. So you can see my line here is actually, this rectangle I drew is actually the center of it. So watch this, if I draw a rectangle, when I let go, watch the black line straddles at either side. Okay, it's a little hard to see, but can you see it's actually going left and right of this? And that can be a bit of a pain, okay, because you're trying to get things to line up, but they're lining up to the, to this center bit here. So what you can do with it selected is you've got options over here to align stroke. And by default, it's left and right. But here I can go actually the inside or all the way on the outside or just straddling the center. Another thing you might look at is the unfortunately named butt cap. Okay, so if I draw a line here and I make it nice and thick, okay, it's got what's called a butt cap, which means it's just, if I grab the line again, can you see it just gets to the end and then completely butts up next to the, the end of the end point. So that's what these ones here for. You probably won't use this third one, but this second one here, the round cap, is, yeah, kind of adds a, I don't know, it's just a different style of line. Okay, and this end one here is kind of a block cap where it goes all the way around that side here, and then there's the butt cap. One last thing you can do is, if I put an arrowhead on this one, and I go arrowhead, can you see it use the end of the line as the tip of the arrowhead? Okay, and that might not be what you need. Okay, you might want to go through and say, see here, okay, it's using the edge of the line. Watch this, it kind of uses the end of the line to start the arrowhead. Okay, so it depends on what you need. Okay, just know that you got a few little options. We're getting a bit nerdy and a bit boring. Let's get on to the next video. I love the next one. It's fun. Let's make that flowery thing in the next video. Bye now. Hi there, in this video we're going to look to make this floral kind of curly twisty pattern thing, okay, and at the end we'll also look at how to change the colors. You can pick different colors to use to get it to fit with your project. Alright, let's go and learn how to do that now in InDesign. Okay, to make that kind of pretty flower looking thing, we're going to start with the polygon tool. Okay, so click and hold down the rectangle tool or the ellipse tool and find the polygon tool. First thing we need to do is if you click once, it'll tell you how many sides and a star inset. The star inset is 50% is kind of your traditional shape of star. Okay, if I delete that, click once. And if I change it to say something like 5%, it just gives me kind of like dulled edges. So decide on what kind of shape you want. It doesn't matter. They all look and have their kind of different feel for this design. I'm going to change out my fill color, it's set to a gradient. Okay, so I'm going to drag it out. A cool little trick while you are dragging out and you want to kind of like play around with the star a little bit, add more sides to it. If I use the up and down arrow by themselves, it does Gridify, which is kind of cool, but not what I want. So while I'm dragging out, if you tap the spacebar key, tap it once, that's it, nothing happens. Now use your up and down, up and right. Okay, so right and left does the star inset, and the up and down does how many stars you've got. So it's totally up to you to see what you want. So just pick, it doesn't really matter. Okay, they all have different looks. So how many stars do I want? I practiced with about 6, that looked good. What I'm going to also do is hold Shift so that it's a perfect height and width. Great. The other thing to note is your reference point needs to be in the center so that when it rotates in a second, it rotates from the center around. Next thing is we need a gradient. I'm going to have no stroke. Thank you very much. And my gradient, go to Window, go to Color, and go to Gradient. Okay, I'm going to pick Linear. Make sure if it doesn't fill it like it did here, it's actually put a gradient around the stroke. You can kind of see it there. See it's light on this side, dark on this side. So what I'm going to do is make sure I'm going to turn that back to none. And just make sure that you're identifying your fill. To do it, can you see over here either your color or this panel here? Just click on the kind of fill swatch just to make sure it's at the front. And in here, I'm going to pick linear. Actually, no, I want radial. Okay, and we want the inside color to be a bit darker than the outside. So click on the White House and pick a color from this color well down the bottom here. But I want it to be like a dark-ish color. It's up to you. This end over here, mine's picked CMYK. Yours has probably gone to the grayscale slider. To change it to look like mine, okay, click on the black house and then click in here and switch to CMYK. Okay, then pick another color. Just make sure it's lighter than that first color. Yeah. If you get it wrong, you can click on this, toggle them back and forth. Up to you. All right, next thing I want to do is you can do a spiky star. It looks quite cool. I'm going to do slightly curved edges. So I'm going to go to Object, with it selected, so make sure, let's go over black arrow, make sure the star is selected, go to Object and go down to Corner Options, and we can kind of give it, instead of square edges, we can give it rounded ones. You can do some fun stuff with some of these other ones as well. They all have, yeah, a different kind of end result. You can increase them up to make them more bendy to a point. It goes to a certain point, it just doesn't get any more round. Okay, it's up to you. I'm going to go with that kind of, yeah, that looks good. Keep going, Dan. Okay. All right, the next thing I want to do is make it quite big. How big? Just make it a bit bigger than your page. I'd like to make it really big, but it's a little hard to work on, so we're just going to make it about that sort of size. I'm going to try and see if it can be in the middle. It doesn't have to be. So the next trick is the kind of rotation and repeating bit. So to do it, we need to find over here on our kind of like toolbar here underneath the scissors, click and hold down. Yours might be set to the rotation tool or the free transform tool. Pick these guys. So we're going to do rotate first. This has to go first, rotate. Okay, so, and then once you've picked it, double click it. And what it does is allow you to kind of type in the rotation that we're going to use. And I'm going to use 15 degrees. And instead of clicking on OK, click on copy. You'll notice it makes a duplicate of it as it's rotating. Next thing we're going to do is open up the scale tool and double click that and decide on how much smaller we want this. Okay, I've just picked 90%. And instead of clicking copy, we're just going to click the word OK. OK. Great, so that's the hard work done. Next thing we want to do is just step and repeat. And InDesign, okay, I've got that star selected still, is got Object, Transform Again, and there's this one here, Transform Sequence Again. So it's going to transform not just what I did last time, which is scale, it's going to do that whole sequence, which is rotation and scale. You can see that it's got a handy shortcut. It's got that shortcut that nobody remembers. That one's the Option key on a Mac. Okay, and the Command key 4. So Option Command 4, I'm not sure what it is on a PC, sorry, but just check it, it'll be in there. Okay, and so I'm gonna hold it. Hey, and just keep on clicking. I'm clicking the mouse until it gets down to a cool little floral spiral thing. I'm gonna grab my black arrow and I'm gonna hit the W key so I can kind of see it without all the blue lines around the outside, but that's an interesting shape. Okay, and depending on your settings, everyone's will look slightly different. There'll be slightly different colors. What I might do is scale this up so it covers the whole background. And that is our weird floral panel. Okay, so that felt like the end, and I did stop the video, and then I was like, man, I don't like that color. Okay, I picked some washed out colors, so I was like, I'm gonna go change it. And then I thought, hey, I'll show everyone else how to change the colors. So we could go back to the beginning and change the gradient, but there is a nice trick we can do. We can grab the rectangle tool. I'm going to have a fill of none, and actually a stroke of none, and a fill of whatever color you want to change it to. I've got our colors from Manuth Furniture, okay, that we're using. You can just mix your own color. I'm going to use the green, and I'm going to drag a box that covers the whole thing. Okay, it's kind of harking back to some of the stuff we did before. Remember color modes? Okay, so this color on top is set to normal. We can change it by going to Effects and Transparency. And what I'd like to do is go from normal and play around with these. Multiply. Not very exciting. I had a little play around with this while the video was off, and in this case color burn works not exactly how I want. Color burn, watch this. I wanted to change it to green, but color burn does a really nice thing and makes it a lot more richer. Can you see with it off? Okay, with this kind of green switch to color burn, kind of gives it a really kind of strength to it. But that's not exactly what I wanted. I wanted to change the color, so I'm going to go back to transparency. Instead of color burn, hue in this case works. Okay, so you might have to play around with the top color to decide which you want. Watch this. With them selected, I can go through now and decide, actually, I want to see what it looks like in pink. And I want to see what it looks like in orange and green and all sorts of stuff. So, yeah. Transparency mode set to hue will give you the option to go off and adjust the color. Maybe get it closer to a brand color that you might need to match. All right, now I'm actually finished for this video. Bye now. Hi there, in this video we're going to look at auto-expanding text boxes. We've all had this problem, right, where we've got a title, we've duplicated it, we're going to put in another one, but it is just chairs and benches. It doesn't fit, and you grab this and you drag that out, or you link it to another text box. Drama. Imagine though, you could transform this box so when I paste into it, look at it, magically gets bigger and smaller. It's called the auto size for text frames. Let's go and learn how to do that now in InDesign. Okay, first up, we're going to be starting a new project that we're going to be working on. So let's go to new document and then let's switch from print to web, because this is going to end up being an interactive document. Okay, it's going to have animations and it's going to go out to some cool places for interactivity. And basically what that changes is the dimensions. We're going to be working in pixels instead of inches or centimeters. The size wise, we're going to make ours kind of like a full HD. Okay, so a kind of a normal typical presentation from a data projector type size. So it'd be really common to have neither of these sizes. It's 1920 by 1080. Okay, that'd be a really common just kind of like screen size. We're going to use landscape. Pages wise, we'll leave it at 1 at the moment. Columns, I want to use 4 in this case, and the gut I want to get right up to something big like 55. And the margins are beginning quite big as well, 150 pixels all the way around. We won't use bleed or slug. Let's hit create. Great, let's save it and we'll stick it onto our desktop in the folder we've created, InDesign Advanced Courseware. This one's going to be called Interactive Magazine. Great. So first thing I want to do for our text boxes is on page 1, I'm going to drag out a text box that goes from across 2 columns, okay? And this one's going to be for tables. And I'm going to make it a lot bigger using my shortcut, Command Shift and greater than symbol. I made it quite big and I'm using Roboto Light. And as a demonstration for this kind of auto text sizing, I'm going to make the text box kind of fit relatively proportionally to the word tables. Cool, I'm going to duplicate this page and show you a little shortcut while we're doing it. I can make a new page and just copy and paste it across. But if I grab this page and drag it down to this little new page icon, it makes a duplicate of it, exactly the same. So page 1 and page 2 look the same. But in here, I want to put in a longer title. Okay, so this one's going to be chairs and, what else was it? Chairs and benches. Okay, and the trouble with it is that, yeah, it didn't fill out. And that's always a problem in InDesign, right? Is that you're forever kind of dragging these out and making them bigger and making them smaller. Imagine if there was a way to automatically size them. You can totally do that. Now, with your black arrow, have the text box selected, go up to Object and go to one called Text Frame Options. And in here, there's this third option here called Auto Size. By default, it is off. What we're going to do is do it by width only. Okay, and we're going to push it from the left-hand side. You can kind of see that as arrows. It's going to push left rather than expand both sides. I'm using my hands to describe this. You can't see my hands. Okay, so we're going to go from the left and push right. Let's click OK. And what that just means now is that when I start typing, it gets bigger along with it. Okay, so it's just a really handy trick to turn on for especially titles like this where you don't want them, you're going to have different sizes. So I'm going to duplicate it again, do our third option, and it's going to get smaller as well as wider. This one here is shelves, and we'll do one more, and this one's going to be bedside tables. Cool. So auto text frames work both width and height. So if you've got a text box here and you want it to get bigger and smaller depending on the text, if I go type and I go to fill with placeholder text and I make it smaller, okay, or I make a
another box, and it just needs to be smaller. It's overset, and all you have to do is the exact same part. Text frame options, auto size, and do height only. I never use height and width. It does some weird stuff. And I'm going to push from the top, and I'm going to click OK. And you'll see as I add more text, I'm going to copy and paste that. It gets bigger and smaller. Deleting it gets smaller. Awesome. Let's get on to the next video. Before we do that, actually, bin you guys, don't need you. All right, now the next video. Hi there, in this video we're going to look at switching out our generic lorem ipsum placeholder text for something a little bit more useful for other languages, like this. And some not very useful placeholder text, like this cat ipsum. Let's go make cat ipsum right now. Okay, so placeholder text alternatives. We're going to grab the type tool and draw a box on our page. It's going to cover 2 columns there. And I'll zoom in a little bit. I'm going to fill it with placeholder text under type, fill with placeholder text. And remember, by default, it just fills it with Roman letters. It's kind of Latin. It's all mixed up. It doesn't make sense. And it's just good there as placeholder. But let's say we're working with a client with a different language. We can, so I've undone that. I'm going to go to type. And if I hold down the command key on a Mac or the control key on a PC before clicking this button here, you get this kind of like little option to pick different kinds of language. And I guess not so much language, it's more the alphabet to be used. So if you need to be using the Cyrillic alphabet, click OK. You can see there it's a placeholder text, same sort of thing, mixed up, unusable, unreadable, but it's good placeholder text for that language. And you'll see there was Japanese and Chinese and Arabic. There's a bunch of different ones in there. So just hold down the command key. So that's some sort of practical use of it. The next thing I'm going to show you is totally impractical. It's kind of fun, I guess. Depends. So we're going to replace our lorem ipsum with something else. Now, in terms of lipsum, there is lots of different options. I've jumped to cat ipsum, but you will find hip hop ipsum, Star Wars ipsum, okay, whatever you want. It's going to be mixed up, okay, and just placeholder text. And this one here, I'm going to decide on, I just want 300 paragraphs. That sounds good. Click make muffins. Super useful. So I've got some placeholder text now, and it's kind of just mixed up gibberish about cats. Okay, but you can find all sorts of other alternatives. I'm going to copy it. And to make this work as your default, okay, I'm going to open up Text Edit on my Mac. Okay, so Text Edit on a Mac or Notepad on a PC. You'll have to dig through your applications folder to find them. Okay, first thing you need to do is paste in your text. And then on Notepad, you just save this document as placeholder text.txt. On a Mac, there's one more step. You need to go to Format and go to Make Plain Text. And it just kind of removes all the formatting. Okay, then you save it and just make sure it's called Placeholder, okay, .txt. Okay, that's the rules, and it has to be holder, not hold. Okay, so it has to be called this. Save it, and where do you save it? Okay, I'm just going to save mine to my work folder for the moment. There we go. And where does it go? It just needs to go in the InDesign application folder. Okay, so on a Mac, it's pretty easy to find. If you've got it down here in your dock, you can right click it and go to options. And there's one that says, show me InDesign in the folder, please, in the Finder, sorry. Okay, and here it is. That's the application folder for InDesign. This is all the guts of the program. And if you just move it into there, so placeholder text, dump it in there, and that's all you need to do. I'll leave that in your exercise file so you don't have to make it, okay, if you do want to have just a play with it and see if it works. So I've put it in there, placeholder.txt. Now if I go to InDesign and open it up and I go to type fill with placeholder text, nothing happens, okay, or I don't have to hold anything down. You can see I have cat ipsum. Now that's, I know, a little ridiculous in terms, I don't know, I like that kind of stuff. So you might be working with a client that you might find a practical use for that, where you've got some like placeholder text that is really useful for you and your client. Okay, and you can go off and find some stuff, and just as long as you call that file placeholder.txt, it will just become the default for InDesign. And if you want to get rid of that, okay, all you need to do is go into here and just delete it, okay, and InDesign will go back to the default. All right, before we finish this one up, I want to create a body copy paragraph style. So I'm going to select all of the text. Okay, I always 5-click. Okay, so 1, 2 gives you the word, 1, 2, 3 gives you the line, 1, 2, 3, 4 gives you the paragraph. And if you do it 5 times, you get everything, including the overset text. I'm not sure if that's a useful shortcut. Clicking 5 times is a bit of a, I use it loads. You can just use Edit, Select All, or Control A on a PC, or Command A on a Mac. With it all selected, because this is going to be an interactive document, we're going to break our rules in terms of font sizes. Okay, I'm going to go up to something like 24, and under paragraph, I'm going to have some space after of about 19. Just kind of works for my interactive document that we're making. And I'm going to select it all, okay, 5 clicks, and I'm going to create a paragraph style. So under Window, under Styles, go to Paragraph Styles, and in here I'm going to create a new option. I'm going to double click Paragraph Style 1, and this one is going to be called MF Interactive Body Copy. Great, let's click OK. And I'm just going to drag this panel up kind of out of the way here. Great, so that's going to be it for this video. We learned how to change the Lorem Ipsum placeholder text to a different alphabet, and we also learned useless stuff on how to change it to cat Ipsum. All right, let's get on to the next video where we do some more practical InDesign amazingness. All right, see you there. Hi there, in this video we're going to put lines around paragraphs and put ugly corner effects on it as well, just because. Now why is it great? Is because when I hit paste, look, it comes along, it gets bigger and smaller, and if I select this one, I've turned it into a paragraph style. So I get to reuse it over and over again. Gets better, okay? There's a few other options here. We do lines around the outside. We also do some shading, another nav corner that I've added. Page 3, we get to do this as well. You can see if I add more, okay, this little side thing happens. It's just an adjustment of that shading, and the last bit of shading awesomeness, let's have a little look, runs off the page. So let's go and look now how to make these borders and shading in Adobe InDesign. Okay, so to add our borders around the outside, we are going to select the paragraph. Actually, just have your cursor flashing anywhere in the first paragraph. Mine's quite a big first paragraph. I'm not sure I like that. Because it's Lorem Ipsum or placeholder text, I can just kind of break it there. Okay, so I'm going to use just this first chunk here. Cursor flashing anywhere inside of it. Okay, and along the top here, doesn't matter whether you're on character or paragraph, all the way on this side, there's the hamburger menu. Click on that one, and hiding in here is one called Paragraph Borders and Shading. Okay, this is the one that's going to add our magic. Let's make sure preview's on, and let's turn border on. We'll start with borders. Okay, pretty easy. Border on the outside. You're going to have to add some padding around it. So watch this. So you're going to be using down here the offset. Okay, so if I increase the offset, can you see? Because they're all linked, they're going to go out all different directions. So make it bigger. Okay, so I'm going to have to play around with my space after. I can't control that now, but that's kind of where I want to do. And you can unlink these and play around, like say the right-hand side, maybe bring it a little bit. Okay, so that controls how far away from the paragraph it is. I'm going to pick a color from my list. Okay, I'm going to use my MF pink, and I'm going to play around with one of these borders. Up to you. I'm going to use the bottom right, so I'm going to unlink them because I just want the bottom right. You can kind of see that icon there indicates bottom right. You might have to play around with them. I'm going to use fancy. Okay, and nothing really happens. You're going to increase the pixel number. You can see on my option over here, it's getting just a little bit bigger. Cool. So yeah, that is it. That's lines around the outside using borders. Let's finish up this paragraph style and look at some of the other options. So I'm going to click OK. Now you can see the space here needs to be changed. So there's a couple of things I'm going to do for the first paragraph. I'm going to select it all, and then I'm going to say, actually, I'd like my character color to be the MF pink as well. Where are you? All right. And I want the space after to be more. So I'm going to go to character. I'm going to go to paragraph actually, and I'm going to increase this up. Can you see it's just pushing that bottom paragraph away? All right. So I'm going to set this as a paragraph style. So I'm going to go to new style. I'm going to double click paragraph style 1. And this one is going to be called MF first paragraph. I'm going to just call it first para. Now, when you are working with paragraph styles, there's this thing called based on. So what it's doing is it's using the paragraph style that I already had as its kind of like base. And on top of that, it's going to add some stuff. And basically what it's going to do is going to add the pink and the border around the outside and the space after, but it's relying on the font from my, you can see here, MF Interactive Body Copy. Now that happens by default, and that often gets people lost when they later on delete one paragraph style and it affects lots of other ones. So when you know what you're doing, it's great. It's kind of like you're basing it on top of another one, but can get confusing. Normally, unless I'm working on a really big document, I will just have based on no paragraph style. Okay, so it's just a standalone, does everything itself, and includes the font, includes the color. So I don't have to worry when I delete a paragraph style, is it connected to another paragraph style? What's gonna happen? What are the consequences? So I just kind of leave every time based on no paragraph style. Let's click OK. And because it's part of the paragraph style, let's say this paragraph here, cursor flashing inside, let's just test it. My first paragraph, you can see, does the same thing. Okay, adds the line around the outside. Okay, so I'm gonna undo that. So let's look at doing one of the other options. So I'm going to go to page 2. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to hit my W key so I'm not in preview. Grab the type tool, drag out a text box, fill it with placeholder text, select it all. And because I've got my interactive body copy, I should be able to easily apply it. Great. So cursor flashing in this first paragraph. And let's look at shading. Okay, so the border is obviously the line around the outside. So cursor flashing the first paragraph up to our stripy line. I've got my type tool selected. Okay, and in here, I'm going to go to paragraph borders and shading. And it's shading in this case that I'm going to use. And what I like to do is turn shading on, make sure preview's on. By default, it's a 20% black. I'm going to switch that out for MF pink at 100%. And again, I'm going to play around with the offsets. Okay, until I get something I like. I'm going to play around with that bottom corner again, unlink it, but I'm going to use a rounded corner down the bottom. Let's move it out the way so we can see. I'm going to increase this up so it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a popular thing to do. Great, let's click OK, and yeah, we'll make a paragraph style out of this one. Actually, we won't, we'll just change the font color. Awesome. So that's how to do the shading of a paragraph. I might also, just to make it look a little nicer, is do my space after, just to push that first paragraph afterwards down a bit. Now another thing people do is there's another kind of use. If I go to page 3, let's have another little go at doing shading. So on page 3, I'm going to grab my type tool, I'm going to grab my type box, I'm going to fill it with placeholder text. Select it all, and I went and closed my paragraph styles. I want to open them up. And body copy. Great, that's kind of an ugly first paragraph there, so I am going to make my own. Great. All right, so with my cursor flashing in the first paragraph, we're going to do one that just kind of lines up on the side here. So what we'll do is we'll go to make sure you're in your type tool. You've clicked in your first paragraph, go to your hamburger menu, and we're going to go to paragraph borders and shading. And what we'll do is we'll do shading, turn it on, and we're going to use a huge negative on the offsets. So let's break the link. On the right hand side, I want to go down. You can get it to do a negative. Okay, and I want to keep going negative. Now, what you'll notice is it goes down in 1 pixel. Remember the shortcut we learned earlier? If you hold down Shift and click it, it goes down in like big chunks of 10. And hopefully now, can you start to see? It's going down on that side there. Clickety click. You might just type it in. I'm clicking away. Okay, so I might go up on the left a couple. Okay, and down even further. And it's just like a visual side marker now, not kind of covering it. Yeah, so you might use this instead of doing like a whole paragraph. I'm going to use the yellow, and I'm going to set it to 100%. And I'm going to click OK. And what's really nice about this, and I guess we haven't really done it, because you could have drawn a box next to it, is that if I add more text, let's say I copy this and just paste it a couple of times, you see it comes along for the ride. The paragraph style is kind of nice and updatable and kind of adjusts to fit the first paragraph, no matter how big or small it is. Click on my black arrow, hit W, and you can see there's just a nice clear indication of the first paragraph. Or it might be a quote or a factoid or some sort of like pricing data or something that you have as part of your copy. You can use this as a kind of a visual cue to find that on the page. Let's look at one more option. So page 4, I should have copied and pasted this paragraph text, but I'm not. You're going to watch me do it one more time. Okay, in there, fill with placeholder text, and select it all. Click body copy, And let's have our cursor flashing in this first paragraph here. And we're going to get this one to kind of like run off the side. It looks kind of cool. You can do it for titles or first paragraphs. So we're going to have a cursor flashing. Let's go to our hamburger menu. Let's look at paragraph borders and shading. Let's go to shading. Let's click on shading. And let's pick, I'm going to pick the green. Crank it up to 100%. And down here where it says offsets, we're going to break that link. And the right will keep fine. It's the left. We're going to go into negatives now. I'm going to hold shift so it runs off. Actually, not negatives. Okay, positives. But I'm holding shift so it runs off to the edge here. And it's just, I guess, a nice way of, yeah, just a nice thing to have. It kind of runs off the edge. Just a nice visual thing. I'm going to have a little bit of offset at the top and the bottom. And probably a little bit to the right as well. Cool. Let's click OK, and I'm going to switch out the font color, character, type, paper. So it's that kind of effect. I'll close that down. Yeah. All right, so those are our three different options. We did borders to start with, and then we've just kind of done variations of the shading to give you different looks. And the benefit is that you can add it as part of your style, and when the paragraph gets bigger or smaller, it adjusts to match. All right, that is it for this video. Let's go and do some more paragraph awesomeness next. Hi there, have you ever wondered why sometimes you can see this letter here or these words here, this SI totally has enough room to fit up here? Okay, it's because by default, InDesign uses something called a paragraph composer. So if you are a real stickler about getting your lines to break right and you're trying to like, why is he up here? And you try and use soft returns and line breaks to try and fix it or non-breaking, it's because by default, it's doing this because it's trying to balance the entire paragraph, not specifically every line. You can turn this on and off. So with it selected, okay, we're going to go to our type tool. Up here in our burger menu, doesn't matter if you're a character or paragraph, let's click on it. And we've got these options here, Paragraph Composer and Single Line Composer. We won't use these two here, the world ready ones. These are for other languages. If you are dealing with like Arabic or Hebrew or Japanese, you might be using these because there are lots of other special things that need to happen. But if you're just dealing with the English language, or at least languages that are based on the Roman alphabet, you can toggle between these two. So we're going to keep an eye on, remember, our little SI, and we're going to click on Single Line Composer. Nothing much is going to change. A few of them did. See, he came up now. So it's trying to balance this thing line by line, kind of like typically how you would imagine it works. Now you as a designer get to go through and you could now be using break characters to kind of force that down and do it yourself. But by default, InDesign wants to do it for you and balance out the whole paragraph. It's up to you. Now, if you prefer to stay on Single Line Composer, you can go to your preferences and change it in there. Now that's changed it for this one paragraph. If you want to change that by default, okay, you can go to your preferences. So go to InDesign, Preferences, Advanced Type. Remember, if you're on a PC, it's under Edit, Preferences, Advanced Type. Down the bottom here, the default composer, switch it to single line, and it'll be like that forever. Cool. Single line composer versus paragraph composer, I'm unsure. Sometimes I hate it when it tries to force letters where I don't want it, and other times I like that the paragraphs are all nicely balanced. You might have a stronger view than me, and you can change it as necessary. All right, that is it for your composer. Hi there, in this video we're going to look at the secrets of splitting and spanning columns, where we take this first paragraph that I really want to cross over both columns. And these guys down the bottom here, I want them to be like in separate little columns within a column. We can do that simply and easily within InDesign like this. So now this one spans, this one splits, it's all just one text box, not lots of text boxes all hacked together. Let's go and learn how to do that now in InDesign. All right, first thing we need to do is we've got a single text box here. I'm on page 4. Our text box spans both these two columns. So I want to split it to match our column guides in the back there. To do it with the black arrow, have it selected, and along here you should be able to see the number of columns. We're going to have 2. We're going to match the gutter, which is the space between the columns like we did earlier on. I think it was 54 pixels. Yeah, 54 pixels. Okay, so they match up. Now this kind of shows you, I'm going to hit W to show the preview, is I want my first paragraph actually to span both of these columns and the text to start underneath. You can do it easily. Grab the type tool, click anywhere in this first paragraph. And along the top here, we need to go from character to paragraph. Then along on the right, quite far along, you need to find this little guy. It looks like I don't know, a bridge or the Arc de Triomphe or something. Okay, and we're going to go from none, and we're going to go to span all. And ta-da, it goes and spans that whole column. That's really handy, especially if you've been in the past just putting him in his own text box. Now you don't have to, you can flow along with the rest of the text. That can also be kept in a paragraph style, make it super easy to use. So that is how to span columns. Let's look at how to split columns. I'm going to go to our exercise files. I want you to go into O3 Magazine and double click Magazine Text. What we'll do is we'll copy this out. Okay, this little chunk here, wood types. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to jump back into InDesign and I'm going to make a space for it about there. I'm going to paste it in. Now, what I'd like to do is this wood types, I'm actually just going to make it bold because it's going to be my heading. But it's these 6 options down the bottom here. I would like them to be kind of like side by side in a nice set of columns. Now I could copy and paste these out into another separate text box, split that into 3 columns, and then try and paste it back in as an inline graphic, and that would work. But it's not as easy as this option. Okay, so with all 3 of them selected with the type tool, switch to paragraph, and in the same place we were a second ago, okay, instead of spanning, we're going to split 2. So it's going to split this column into 2 parts. So we've got kind of like 2 mini columns within another column. Super useful, super quick. I'm going to add bullet points while I'm here, and you can see it's just a really nice, quick, easy way to add those columns rather than jumping out to another text box or trying to play around with tabs. All right, that's going to be it for splitting and spanning columns. Let's get on to the next video. Hey there, if you enjoyed the course, please give me a thumbs up. It really helps me and my courseware. If you want to learn more about advanced InDesign techniques, check out my full course on bringyourownlaptop.com. All right, bye now.